I did not know that robots could make me feel more connected to my humanity, and I absolutely love them for it. Okay, ready. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel MJ Books. I'm MJ and welcome back to your spot for book reviews, book recommendations, and the occasional rant, which is again one today and more of a positive one. So today for my March review we're gonna dive into In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune and everything that makes this book a perfect, imperfect, soft, whimsical little story, fantasy meets science fiction. So I have my notes ready, let's dive right in. I got into this book because I'd already read TJ Klune's The House in the Cerulean Sea and its sequel. I'd read Under the Whispering Door and Wolfsong, and just what makes me come back to his stories all the time is just his way of storytelling and the fact that he builds his characters that almost feel like family at the end of the book, and he just builds such a very well developed world and a very unique world as well. And he does that while exploring themes that make us humans beautifully flawed. So to give a little overview about what In the Lives of Puppets is about, on the surface it seems like a cute story about a father, a boy, and a puppet, but it actually is a lot more than that. It's a story that explores all kinds of love, parental, romantic, platonic love, friendships, and actually it asks what it truly means to be human. So this story is about Vic, our main character, who lives a very secluded and safe life in the forest with his father named Giovanni, but his father is an android. So they live alongside other two robot companions who they created, and they live a very self-sufficient and peaceful life in the forest until Vic reactivates another android named Hap. So Hap's awakening sets off a chain of events that forces them to flee their home and embark on a journey to the city of electric dreams, which will basically challenge everything that they know about themselves and the world around them. So this book asks essential questions like, are we defined by what we are built for, or can we forge our own paths? So one of the best parts about this book is the characters and the relationship they have among each other. So there's Victor, our main character. He's a very insecure boy and his insecurities are actually very relatable, and it actually made me wonder, because he's the only human, it actually made me wonder how I would be if I were not to grow up around other humans and just very alone in a forest. And Vic is like an inventor and a thinker, so he's the one that activates the android Hap. So Hap is our next character, which stands for hysterical angry puppet, which I think is hilarious. But it also very much fits because there's a lot of anger in him, but that's mostly because he's just trying to find his position in this new world after he's been reactivated. Then there's Nurse Ratchet, a very dark sociopathic nurse machine, which has the best dark humor moments in this story. And then there's Rambo, an adorable vacuum cleaner who just really wants some validation. And I read in the acknowledgements of this book that he is basically the inspiration for this story. TJ Klune bought a robot vacuum, put some goggly eyes on it, and was like, that's a great story. So between these characters, there's so many dynamics and there's so many heartfelt moments. And at some point, it just felt like my own family was going through these things. So at the moment they had to flee their home, I was like, no, just stay there, just stay and have a good time and I'll join you. I just didn't want any harm to come to them because this found family trope is so strong and heartwarming to read, and it's just so adorable to watch them all grow together, and I just didn't want anything to happen to them. So about the science fiction, fantasy elements and the world building, this story is clearly an inspiration from Pinocchio, but I think it's a very unique version of puppets trying to find his humanity type of way, and it's also a lot more than just that narrative. There's lots of nods to other stories like The Wizard of Oz and The Swiss Family Robinson, but I think nonetheless this book is very unique and enjoyable to read, and I'm actually glad I did not, was not aware of these references while reading. So compared to other science fiction and fantasy books, it strikes a very good balance between world building and character driven storytelling, and it's not as complex that you need a map, but it still sort of invites you in and wants you to explore more about the world. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love maps. I love a good strong world building and elaborate world building. Give me as many maps as you can, but I'm very glad that I finally found an author and a story that can envelop me in a world like that without all those extras, without maps needed. which is a nice and welcome change because sometimes I just really need a break from flipping back and forth to the map all the time. So next to the themes of found family and self-exploration, this book also really explores how the world would look like if we would let technology sort of forge your free will, like they have a conscious mind. And it really made me reflect on AI, as that is now like a hot topic. And it really made me think about how technology has already affected our daily lives already. This really contrasts in the book between this very secluded forest away from everything, contrasted with the city of electric dreams, which is a very overstimulating city with robots and technology everywhere. And this contrast really made me aware of where we as humans come from, as in like the forest nature, and where we could or are going. And it really made me wonder about like this metaphor. The story really gives a metaphor for our own world, I feel like. And at some point I wondered why it doesn't really give more explicit opinions about this world, since it's such a strong metaphor for our own reality. And I would have wanted some more stronger opinions because it mostly lets the reader fill it in, like what the reader thinks of this world. And I read in the acknowledgements after reading this book that TJ Klune said something like he wanted this book to be something more, but that the world wasn't ready for it yet. And he sort of stays very vague, but I feel like he's talking about how he wanted to be more critical on this world and this relationship with humans and technology. I felt a bit sad reading that he thought the world wasn't ready for it yet, but I hope he still writes a version like that, and I would love to read it. So what I also really love about this book is the queer representation. TJ Klune himself is a gay asexual man, and he writes Victor's asexuality, our main character's asexuality, in a very refreshing way, especially in the fantasy science fiction genre where it sometimes, if it's there, is a big part of their personality. In the Lives of Puppets, it's just there. We don't even know it from the start, but it's just very naturally woven into the story, and it's just part of who he is. It's not like his entire personality, and he doesn't change because of it. And I just felt very refreshing to read such kind of subtle but very, and therefore very strong representation of queerness. So at the beginning I said this was an imperfect book, and like every book it is not without its flaws, so let's talk a little bit about that. So sometimes the humor is a bit excessive and repetitive, especially in the middle portion of the book, and it feels like sometimes they could have sort of trimmed that down a little bit more. I needed more to happen, like when they embarked on this journey to the city of electric dreams, I felt like there was going to be so many more stakes and many more challenges. I just wanted more to happen. Maybe that's just my brain that needs stimulation all the time. So at times it can be a very slow-paced book, but I also think on the other side that sort of fits the story as well. And I think that these imperfections could argue for that they make the story better as well, because also the theme of like humanity and its flaws and what will happen to them. So I feel like these imperfections make the book even better if I think about it. So In the Lives of Puppets is a imperfect but very wholesome take on what would happen if humans let technology sort of take over the world, but it's done in a very personal and heartfelt way with the important parts of representation and all types of love. And I think that combination is what really makes this book so special for me. So I'm really curious to read if you agree with me and what you thought of the book, if you read it, and if you want to read it, if you haven't. So let me know your comments in the section below, and I would love to read them. I hope you enjoyed listening to my positive rant about In the Lives of Puppets. I especially wore green because of it, because it's a green cover and I just love it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my April review. Can't wait. Bye!